Hi, I'm Sam.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're from Kosmic, and one of the questions we get asked on a daily basis is, I've got my brand new drum kit home, it's all in boxes, so what do I do now?
So what we're going to do is show you how to set it up. So let's get started.
So for this part of the setup, all we need is a pair of scissors. So we're going to cut open all of our boxes, get rid of all of the rubbish, so we're just left with a nice pile of drums and hardware.
Alright, now that we've got everything out of the boxes, we're going to start putting the heads on the kit.
And make sure you've emptied all your boxes and all the plastic bags and gotten all the hidden bits and pieces out of it, and that you're set up ready to go. Okay, so I've got all my other drums and hardware out of the way, and I'm going to start by building this drum kit from the ground up, starting with the bass drum. And the kit that I'm using today is a Mapex Prodigy kit, which is one of our starter line drum kits. So I've got all my parts here laid out for me, and the most important tool that you're going to find in amongst all your bits and pieces is this one here, which is a drum key. You're going to need this to pretty much do most adjustments on your drum kit. Okay, so starting with the bass drum, one of the common things that I see a lot is people actually putting it back to front. So what you want to do is find where your tom block is, and that's usually at the front of the drum. So the first thing I'm going to do with the bass drum is actually put the bass drum spurs on, and these are these two rods that you'll find in the box. Always make sure, and this is going to help you to find the front of the drum as well, make sure that these are angling towards the front. Okay, so in the box you're going to find two drum heads. One of them is what we call the logo head, and the other one is what we call the batter side head. So I'm going to start with the batter side head, and that's the side that you hit. With the batter side head, I'm just putting it onto the drum there and just making sure my logo's up the top, and I'm going to grab one of these hoops. And I always try to find where the little seam is on the hoop and try to hide that underneath one of our claws just to make it look a little bit neat. So what I'm doing, drum head's on the drum, hoop on over the top, we'll find where the seam is. And then what we do is just start putting all of these claws on and just finger tightening everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and put all of these other claws on. I go opposite to each other so that one side doesn't get pulled down too tight when I'm finger tightening everything. Okay, so I've got all of my claws onto the drum. I'm just going around just making sure they're all an even sort of tension. I still haven't used my drum key yet. This is all just with the fingers. Okay, so now I'm going to use my drum key, and what I'm doing, I'm just pressing down on the head here, and you'll see that there's a fair few wrinkles appear. What I'm doing with the key is just going opposite, just giving it one turn, just to try to get rid of some of those wrinkles. So after I've done about one turn on each of these lugs going opposite, I'm just going to do the other head. But before I do the other head, if you're playing rock and roll music, what you're going to want out of your bass drum is a nice solid thud. So most people are going to put some sort of muffling inside the drum. So it's a good time to do this now while you've got the front head off. Okay, so I've turned the drum around, and you can use anything for muffling, usually an old pillow or an old towel, you know, something that mum's not going to want back because it's going to live in your drum. So for the purpose of this, I just got an old bit of black material. So we're going to stick it in here and just make sure it's resting on this, on the batter side head, and then we're going to put the logo side head on in the same way that we did the other side. Now I'm just going to put the front logo head on, and one really important thing, make sure that your logo is straight. Nothing worse than a crooked logo. So now I've got my front logo head on, I'm going to do just what I did to the batter side. Just go around with my key going from opposite sides. Always use a bit of plastic on the front head just so I don't get my big greasy fingerprints all over the front skin. So now that I've got my heads on my bass drum, I'm just going to adjust these bass drum spurs so that the drum's not rocking around and it's solid on the ground. And as far as how high up it is at the front, doesn't really matter as long as it's not moving anywhere. Now to play the bass drum we've just put together, you're going to need your bass drum pedal. So I've gone over to my hardware pile and found my bass drum pedal. This one's particularly disassembled, it's actually upside down. So I'm just going to flip this side around. And now we're going to put the springs on these little parts here. So there's 2 springs on this pedal. And we just need to just clip them on like that on both sides. And it's starting to look like a bass drum pedal. This part down the bottom has got a little hole and a little part that clips into there. So we just clip that in there. And next we put the bass drum beater on. So the bass drum beater doesn't have to go all the way down, doesn't have to go all the way up, just somewhere in the middle there. And then using your drum key, just tighten that bit up. Okay, so now that I've got my bass drum pedal set up, I'm just going to hook it onto the drum. So I've turned the drum around so we can see what we're doing. And it's just simply a matter of just hooking it onto the drum there. Make sure that that rod underneath is hooked into its little hole there. And then we've got a wing nut here, so we just tighten that down until it's nice and tight on the hoop. Now we're ready to give it a hit and see what it sounds like. So that sounds pretty good to me. If it's too high or if it's too low, just use your key and just adjust it just by tiny little increments until it's sounding how you want it to. So that's the foundation of your new drum kit, the bass drum. Now we're going to shoot over to Ryan. He's going to show you how to set up your toms.
The next thing we're going to set up is the floor tom. It's a similar process to the bass drum, and we'll start with the batter head. Just make sure that you've got the drum up the right way again. You can tell this by the badge at the front and also your floor tom brackets as well. They're usually down at the bottom of the drum. Right. Line up the logo on the skin with the logo at the front as well. And then get your hoop, put it down over the top and start putting tension rods on. So same process as the bass drum. I'm try and get them on opposites, just so that the head goes on even. Okay, now so all the tension rods are on at finger tight. We'll grab our drum key. Again, same process, just push down in the middle of the head and you'll see all the wrinkles. So you just want to bring the skin up to get rid of the wrinkles. Now that we have the top head on, we'll flip the drum over and do the resonance side. So same process as what we did with the batter head. Line the logo up of the head with the drum, put the hoop on, and then all the tension rods at finger tight. Same again, push down in the middle of the head. We just want to pinch it up so we get rid of all the wrinkles. Okay, so now that that's all done, what we'll do is to give the drum a hit, see what it sounds like. Sounds pretty good. Okay, so the final stage is getting the floor tom legs on. So you just see at the side here, loosen these off and slide the legs in. So now we're finished with the floor tom, we'll move on to the rack toms. All right, we'll start with a 10-inch tom. It already comes in the box assembled, so we'll just give it a quick tune. So pretty much you want to make sure that both the heads are at a similar tension and just go around each tuning rod and make sure that they're at a similar pitch. And flip it over and do the resonance side. And give it a quick hit, see what it sounds like. Sounds pretty good. So we'll go on to tom 2 now, and it's exactly the same process. That one's all done. We'll give it a hit now and see how it sounds. All the toms are done now, so we'll go back to Sam and he's going to sort out the snare drum for us.
Okay, thanks for that, Ryan. Now we're going to work on the snare drum. So this is the one that's got the wires on the bottom of it. Now, this is kind of your main drum in the whole drum kit, so it's important to get this one sounding good. So Again, what Ryan was doing, just getting rid of the wrinkles out of the skins, we do exactly the same thing on the snare drum, except with this one you can actually go a little bit tighter than what you would on your toms, and that's going to give you a good response when you hit it, and it's going to make it sound nice and crisp. I'm going to start with the bottom head because it's really important. It's going to be a lot tighter than what you're going to have on the rest of your drums. So I'm just going to give this one a good 2 or 3 turns, again going on the opposites. We're not going to worry too much about the wires just yet, but we're going to get this so it's nice and tight down the bottom. And I like to just give this a little bit of a tap just by lifting the wires up so that we can't hear them. I like to just give it a little bit of a tap there and just make sure it's a nice tight sort of tension. And I'm not bothering tapping around because it's kind of hard to do because you've got the wires and everything buzzing. That's why I like to just give it a little bit of a tap just to hear that it's nice and tight. So now I've got the bottom head nice and tight, I'm just going to flip it over again. We're not worrying too much about the wires yet. Just flip it over and I'm going to do the same thing to the top, maybe with the top not quite as tight as the bottom head. Again, the same as the toms, I'm just giving it a quick tap just at every point just to make sure they're a similar sort of pitch. Now the reason why I have the top head a little bit looser than the bottom, I believe the bottom needs to be nice and tight in order for your wires to work. Most of the time when people come into the shop and they say, oh, my snare drum sounds really bad, it's the reason being is because the bottom head is a little bit too loose and the wires are too tight. I reckon it should be the other way around. Have a nice tight bottom head, the wires loosened off so it's not choking the drum, and you're going to get a pretty good sound out of your snare. So at the side of the snare drum we've got what we call a snare strainer, and that throws the wires on or off. So at the moment it's off. When we put it on here it just engages the wires. So just by tapping around the drum I can hear that those wires are a little bit rattly, a little bit too loose. So I'm just going to use our snare strainer just to tighten them up a little bit here. Just until they're engaged enough so that they're not buzzing and they're not choking the drum. That's pretty good. So I'm going to just grab a stick now and give it a quick hit and just make sure that those wires aren't too tight and they're not too buzzy. And you can do that just by tapping out of the edge. And you know if it's too choked because you actually won't even hear the wires. That sounds pretty good.
Okay, now that we've got all the drums set up, we're going to start getting our cymbals on the stands, and we'll start off with the hi-hat stand first. It's a little tricky to get used to, but pretty much you've got 2 little clips at the bottom. They hook into the holes of the stand. You rest that down on the ground, and then you get your legs, and just make sure it's sitting nice and flush on the ground. Tighten this one up. Then you've got the middle section. You take the clutch off, and there's just a little insert in between, and you just screw that on. You get it on there nice and tight. Slip that post over the top, and then tighten it up. And that's the stand. And you grab your hi-hats, and you get the bottom, and slip it on the bottom first, and then you got the clutch here, and pretty much you just unscrew the bottom of it, and the cymbal, the hi-hat cymbal fits in between the 2 felts. So on like that, you put the bottom felt over the top, and then tighten the screw back up. Get that on so it's reasonably tight, not too tight. And you slip the clutch over the top, put your foot down, loosen this, loosen the wing bolt, then tighten it back up, and you're ready to go. Okay, so now we'll get the crash cymbal on. It's just the straight stand. So just put that one in there, tighten it up. And same again, you just want the cymbal to sit in between the felts. Take that off, grab your crash cymbal. So on the top of the stand you've got a plastic cymbal sleeve. You want the crash to sit over the top of that, then the felt, washer, and then your wing nut. So then tighten it up. You don't want it to have it too tight or too loose, sort of just in between so the cymbal can still move. It's ready to go. So finally the ride cymbal. So this one's a boom stand. So it's got the boom arm there. We'll just sit it at that angle for now. Same again, slip it into the base of the stand, tighten it up. Loosen the wing nut. Same process. So the ride sits over the top of the cymbal sleeve again. Felt, washer, and the wing nut. So because the ride cymbal is a bigger cymbal, you just want to make sure that it's nice and sturdy. So just widen the legs out a little bit, tighten it up, get it to the right height, and that should be fine.
Okay, included in our Mapex drum kit we've got a stool, so I'm just going to put this stool together. As you see, it's got a few holes there, and that's actually a height adjustment. And with the base of our stool here, we've got a square here, and that's where our nut and bolt goes through. So I'll show you how we put this together. At the top part of the stool, we've got an indent here, and that's where the top of your stool screws on so it doesn't swivel around. So I'm going to just put this together. With the square there, we just need to line up our holes with our square. Put our bolt through there. Then we've got a washer. So the washer is curved, and then we just put a wing nut over the top of it. Then it's just simply a matter of putting the top of the stool on and then tightening it up if you want to, or if you want to swivel around on it, you leave it loose. So now we're ready to start building our kit. The bass drum's already done, we've hooked the pedal up, we've got the spurs there, we've got it all facing the right way. So the next thing I like to put on is the toms. So what we've got here is the tom mount. Now, there's two of these tom mounts are going to go into the bass drum here. So it's just a matter of just putting it in there, and I don't put it down too low or too high to start with. And with this particular kit, we've got some wing nuts here that actually go on the outside. You'll see that when I put this next one in. So we just put the next one in here. And again, not down too low, not down too high, because we're going to reposition our toms in a second. Now, this part here is what we call a memory lock. What the memory locks do, using our key, they just slot into there and they just keep things nice and tight. And then if you're ever setting them up or if you're pulling them down, then these are a good way to get them back in exactly the same spot again. So I'm just going to undo these key bolts here and just let them sit in there. I'm not going to tighten anything up because I don't know what sort of heights I'm going to have yet. Now onto our toms. This part of the tom, which is called the tom bracket, just goes onto our tom arm here. And again, I just put it about halfway down, give it a bit of a tighten up, and we're not too worried about angles or anything like that yet. This particular Mapex kit, the Prodigy kit, it's on a ball mount, so this will go anywhere that you want it to. So for now, I'm just going to put it just at a regular sort of angle like that. Again, not too worried about the heights. And the same with the other one. Most people have their smaller drum on the left-hand side, assuming that we're right-handed. If you're left-handed, you just switch it around the other way, or do whatever you want. At this point, I'd like to say there's no right or wrong way of setting up your drums. There are some things that make a little bit more sense, and I'm just going to explain it from my point of view. I always like to have my toms down as low as they'll go without actually hitting the drum, and I like to have them fairly flat. But if you want to have them on a bit more of an angle, or if you want to have them higher, or if you want to have them lower, it's up to you. Personal preference. So starting with the 12-inch tom, I've just lowered that down. I'm still about 2 centimeters away from the bass drum hoop there. It's at a kind of an angle that I'm pretty happy with. Again, I'm going to do that with this smaller tom here, and just lower them so that I've got them at an angle and a height that I can actually hit them. So just give that a bit of a tighten up there. I'll just get across here. That's pretty good. Maybe this one's a little bit out. Just using our adjustment there. This one's a little bit high, so I might just drop that one down a bit. Again, it's all personal preference, so I'm about 6'1". If you're 5 foot tall, you're probably going to set your drums up a little bit different to what I do. And that looks like it's about good for me. Beautiful. And now that I've got these where I want them, I'm just going to use my drum key to tighten up these memory locks here. That's going to tighten everything up, and it's going to make sure that they go back in exactly the same spot if I ever pack these up. Now we're going to put the snare drum onto its stand. This is fairly easy. This stand has just got 3 arms here, so the drum just goes on there. Some people like having the strainer to the left or to the right or in front of them, doesn't matter. I always have it to the left like that. So the drum just goes on there, and then it's got a little screw at the bottom there. We just pinch that up a bit so it's not too tight, but just so it's grabbing the drum. Now, about the angle of the snare drum, again, I like to have it nice and flat, and I like to have it so that when I'm hitting the drum with my stick, that my hand is almost at a right angle. Again, you might want to have it a little bit lower, a little bit higher. You might want to have it angled towards you, angled away from you. It's all entirely personal preference. So once I've got the snare drum onto its stand, I just put it behind the kit here so that it's somewhere so that it's not banging into the bass drum, but just so it's nice and comfortable, and that I'm sitting here and it's in line with this tom and everything feels pretty good. And that's a pretty good spot there for me. And the last drum that goes on the kit is the floor tom. So what I usually try to have it at the same height and the same angle as I have my snare drum. So again, you might want to angle it in towards you, you might want to have it a little bit further out, you might want to have it a bit closer in. As long as the floor tom's in a good spot where you're comfortable hitting it, that's all that matters. Now that I've got my drums up, it's time to put my cymbals onto my kit. So I'm going to start with my hi-hats. So as long as they're there, and you can reach them with your foot and with your stick, and they're at a good height so that you're not sort of hitting your sticks together when you're playing, then that's all there is to it. So those, I just put them in a little bit far away from me there, so that feels pretty good. They're underneath my foot there, I can hit them with my stick, so that's good. Okay, so I'm just going to bring the ride cymbal in now, and I just want it over here, just so it's just over this tom-tom here, not over the top of the floor tom. Again, you could have it down really low, you could have it flat, you could have it on more of an angle, it's all entirely up to you. So I just have it there so that it's not touching any of my drums, and so with my stick I can reach the bell okay, I can reach it if I want to play it on the bow as well. So that's the ride cymbal. I'm going to bring the crash in now. So crash usually goes in front of me here, just near your hi-hats. Again, same thing as the ride. This one's on probably a bit too much of an angle for me, so I might just straighten that up a bit. There we go. And that's good there, it's not in the way of anything. I can still reach it with my stick. And that's pretty much it for the cymbals. So thanks for spending some time with Ryan and I, and hopefully you got your new drum kit set up beautifully and you're ready to go.
If you'd like to see this kit or any of the other kits that we have, come and see us at our Osborne Park store or the Cannington store, or online at kosmic.com.au. How was that?